Hello, this is the Commercial Landscaper Podcast with Robert Clinkenbeard. This show will transform your leadership by developing all areas of your life, business, family, personal and health. Only by fine-tuning yourself will you truly operate at a highly functioning leader. Super excited today to announce that we're just surpassed the 100th edition of the Commercial Landscaper Show. And we're going to see better things from this year. We're going to be introducing some education, courses in leadership and sales that you could apply and join and try to improve yourself. So hopefully you can join us in some of these courses and reach out if you want to hear some new guests. This is all about bettering you, bettering your business, and make you function at a super high level. Thanks again, everyone. Cheers. Hi, this is Robert Clinkenbeard with the Commercial Landscaper Podcast. I'm really excited today to be joined by Roger Braswell. Roger, really excited for you to join me today. Rather than, you've got an unbelievable background here, and I was just overwhelmed just reading through all the different ventures you've been joined in. They describe you as a serial entrepreneur, but I'd love the audience just to hear from you yourself. Just tell me a little bit about your background, the companies you've been involved in, and then some of the ventures you're now involved in, please.
Yeah, so I'm in my 55th year in the industry, I think, Robert. I started at 15 and I'm going to be 70 on Saturday. So, I've lived not just my career, but pretty much my life in the landscape industry. And it's blessed me tremendously. I've been fortunate to start not all landscape companies, but 13 different operating companies, including some businesses in the equipment industry, as well as businesses in the landscape industry. And, been at it consistently. It's the only thing I've done longer than being married to my wife, which is 52 years with her.
Nice, congrats. That's a huge achievement these days.
Well, the miracle is that you could be in the landscape business and not ruin your marriage, right? So
yeah, that's true. Good point.
So she came alongside me for 18 of those years and worked with me, so that was a blessing. But so I started in the typical lawn maintenance business at 15, and then while I was still a teenager, expanded into landscape contracting, both commercial and residential, and then at the ripe old age of 24, I acquired the Southern Shade Tree Company, which had been founded in 1954 by Ralph Boone. And he mentored me for a while in the business of transplanting large trees and doing larger commercial projects. And so managed to expand until we had offices in Charlotte, Raleigh, Winston-Salem, Greensboro area, and Wilmington. And then in 1998, I was one of 7 landscape contracting business owners who put our companies together to go public on the New York Stock Exchange as Landcare USA.
Okay.
And stayed with that business until we sold it to the Service Master Company and merged it with True Green, became True Green Landcare, and stayed there and ran the southeastern and southwestern parts of the country for True Green Landcare through January of 2000, when I left and got really rolling in my equipment businesses. Along the way, I had discovered the Dingo product made in Australia and secured the North and South American rights to the Dingo product in 1995 and sold that to Toro in 97, and then helped them launch it, training their dealers and distributors in the sales and servicing aspect of the Dingo product. And later acquired the Boxer product and competed with them and bought the manufacturing plant out in Oklahoma that made the Boxer, and got over into the manufacturing and distribution side of the business. And then more recently than that, I got into the equipment rental business with a company called Compact Power Equipment, which I founded and launched. And we ended up on the parking lots of 1,100 Home Depots across the US and Canada, and owned the equipment for rent on their parking lot. And in addition to that, we had a equipment servicing business that took care of equipment inside of every Home Depot in the US every Lowe's in the US and Canada, and every Best Buy in the US, taking care of equipment inside their stores. So we had Compact Power Services alongside Compact Power Equipment Rental, and we're in all 50 states, Canada and Puerto Rico. And then sold that to the Home Depot in 2017. And since then have gotten back into the landscape industry and have kind of the newer version of the Southern Shade Tree Company, and Bentwood Farms, which is a sod business with 2,200 acres of sod near Florence, South Carolina, shipping across the two Carolinas. So, I seem to can't, my wife says I failed retirement. So,
no, and yeah, just so impressive, all the different things. And, when you were talking there, what came clear to me that you obviously do a really good job of networking. So, you have to be networked, you have to know a lot of people. And then secondly, because you're active in the industry, you're well networked, you're able to see some of these opportunities come in front of you. And obviously being an entrepreneur, then looking at those opportunities and then seeing some type of vision where that company is going, you almost immediately start to think about some type of an exit plan, or what does the life cycle look like for this type of company. So you seem to have a real knack of that, and I think that's typical of an entrepreneur.
Yeah, I think you grow in that through the years, right? I remember when I first started, I was 15, and I bought a riding lawnmower with the help of the bank. It was $400. I put $100 down, and my dad signed for me to borrow $300 from the bank. I had $250 for a used pickup truck, and I was in business. And I landed a small apartment project, and every week I would have to mow it by myself. And I remember riding that mower at that small apartment project thinking, someday my company is going to be so big that I'll pull up on a job and the workers who are working for me won't know who I am. Kind of, thinking about the undercover boss long before there was.
Yeah.
And that was pretty much my idea of how big I wanted to be.
Okay.
Be big enough that not everybody knew me. And of course that ended up happening, dozens and dozens of times in my career, and I always thought about that moment. But later I got a little bit more sophisticated about the strategy.
Right.
So, but the idea of having an idea of where you're going and having a plan is critical. I've had a lot of my team members through the years kept pressing me to write a book about my career, and so I've done that. It's called Stepping Into the Moment, and it's available on Amazon. But in the book, I talk about my progression towards understanding the 5 key elements that I think every business leader has to attend to. What I call plan, sell, do, track, tell. Planning, which is everything from your overarching long-term strategy to next year's budget to next week's plan to today's plan, right? There's an element of always being intentional about planning. Selling, if nobody sells anything, nothing happens. So, marketing and selling. Doing, which is the execution, the actual doing the install or the maintenance, fulfilling your agreements. Tracking, which is, both from a management information viewpoint and from a government viewpoint and from the bank's viewpoint, making sure you've tracked everything that you need and that all of your stakeholders need. And then finally, what I call telling, or communicating to your team, to your customers, to the general public, to your vendors, your bank, all the communication items that have to happen. So it's a combination of planning, selling, doing, tracking, and telling. And so we try, as I am mentoring younger people in the business, to stay focused on all 5 of those things and make sure we're ticking all those boxes. And I've been fortunate. I serve on 3 corporate boards and 3 nonprofit boards today, and in all of those cases, I'm trying to make sure that the people who are running those businesses are ticking all those boxes. Right?
Yeah. What do you when you come across companies that need help, I mean, what are the ones that are typically not being done out of those five?
Yeah. So most entrepreneurs are good at selling and doing. And then if they don't master tracking pretty soon, the government will come knocking about the taxes, or the bank is going to call their note. So you've got to master tracking. And then the two that sort of get ignored are planning on the front end and telling on the back end. And I find that those are the two areas. In fact, in compact power equipment, I was fortunate. I had a great CFO who handled the tracking. I had a great chief development officer who was running the sales side, and a great chief operating officer who handled the doing. And I pretty much spent all of my time on planning and telling as the CEO of the business. And I think at some scale, a CEO who's running a good business will find himself mostly involved in the strategy and planning, and then the communication on the backside. And he'll have really good people in the selling, doing, and tracking sides of his business.
Yeah, this actually brings up a good point, because I agree that a lot of companies I work with struggle in these 2 or 3 different areas, but there's almost like a belief that existing owners feel as though they could try and do everything. And I think, as probably you and I have experienced a lot, is you have to, in order for you to become successful or become more successful quicker, then you need the right people to surround you. People who are, if you struggle with the financial part, then you bring on some type of CFO, or maybe a fractional financial expert. Or if there's somebody else that you're lacking in that skill set, then build your team around you. And that's obviously going to help to scale the company up a little bit quicker.
Absolutely. And, it's hard to get it right on the first pass. And so it takes a lot of stick-to-itiveness to get the right team on the bus, and a willingness when you get the wrong player to get them off too. There's that. But I love Jim Collins, Good to Great, and we sort of made it our operating Bible a bit for our business. And he talks about getting the right people on the bus and the right seat on the bus, and then making sure you get the ones off the bus that shouldn't be on it. So it's an ongoing process, but you have to be intentional about all of that.
Oh, for sure. I mean, yeah, I love Jim Collins. I love his principles, and my goal, when I work with companies, my goal is to try and get to at least 80% of especially the middle to senior leaders, 80% of them being A players. And if there's somebody not that A player, then what you need to do to either develop them, or maybe they're moving to a different bus or a different seat in the bus. So I love that whole Jim.
I've had a few that I've managed to get on my competitor's bus, and I was really happy about that.
That's funny. Yes, they think it's successful at the time, and then they quickly find out, maybe we made a mistake.
I'm joking mostly, but you do get a few along the way that are better working for somebody else.
Oh, for sure.
Hey, speaking of Jim Collins, there's just one thing I want to be sure we get into this conversation, because I love this concept and it has been so helpful to me. It's what he called his hedgehog concept. I don't remember that part, but it's, the hedgehog has one defense. It makes itself into a ball and puts its quills out. And that's a one successful, effective defense. And so he recommends every company figure out what their hedgehog concept is. And we've adopted it and called it our one big thing. And so the one big thing, and he defines it this way: it's something that you're passionate about, that you literally can be the best in the business at, and that drives your economic engine. And so at Compact Power, our one big thing was convenience. We were on 1,100 parking lots with the best real estate in America at the Home Depot. Everything was on a trailer. You could hook it up easily and take it right away. If you wanted us to deliver it, we would deliver it to you. And if you wanted to call and have it delivered, you could call in, you could do it online, or you could just come to the store and it was ready to go. And so all decisions that we made were made around, does this make us more convenient or not? If it did make us more convenient, we probably shouldn't be doing it. If it did, we probably should be doing it. In our current business, our one big thing is dependability. And so So everything we do is to drive better dependability. So we have 4 harvesters in our side business and 26 tractor trailer trucks, our own fleet, our own drivers. We control them. If we tell you we're going to be there on Wednesday morning with your side, you pretty well count we're going to be there Wednesday morning. And if we see that something's going wrong, involved in an accident or down piece of equipment, we're going to call you immediately and get our hand up and say, hey, we got a problem here. But so I think every company's got to figure out what's their one big thing that they can be the best at and focus on it. And I call it the one big thing, or the hedgehog concept.
No,
Anyway.
that's so true. Yeah, the hedgehog concept, the one thing. And it always touches back on the point you made earlier that with your 5 key levers in business, people are really good at doing, they're really good at selling, but they rarely take that time to figure out what their hedgehog concept is. What's their differentiator? They're so busy in the business, they don't necessarily take that time to think about, well, what's our differentiator? What's our one thing? So yeah, I think it's really nice job for pointing that out.
Yeah, it's so easy to get caught up in the day to day, right? And the urgency of the moment, and it's almost old news now that people get the tyranny of the urgent, but somehow we never seem to grow above it. You could work on the business instead of always in it, right?
Yeah, that's so true. Talk to me a little bit about, you've obviously been involved and owned multiple different businesses. Now, there are some people out there who, they're so passionate about their own business, they're so emotionally attached to the business, and sometimes that detrimental, maybe bounces along, there's not a great deal of growth there. What's your thoughts around almost, I hate to say treat it like a transaction, but what's your thoughts about, maybe having one business, having a roadmap of maybe 3-5 years, having some type of an exit plan, jumping into the next business? You're constantly learning along the way, but any thoughts about either strategy?
Yeah, so I've tried not to become so attached to a business that I forget that I typically have several roles, but one of those roles is as an employee and another role is as an owner. And it's so easy to get caught up in the employee role that you forget that you're an owner, you're a shareholder. And the idea of being a shareholder is to build wealth in order to actually cash in on that wealth. You're either going to have to take dividends out of the business and run it for a long time, or sell it to someone else who has a different plan for it, or a plan that's perhaps bigger and are willing to pay up for it. So I've sold quite a lot of businesses along the way, but I will say that I have done my best to make sure that the buyer was the right buyer and that the business had longevity for the team that helped me build it. And I've also brought many of the team members into the equity of the business so that when we had that day, they were winners too. The leadership of the company, were also winners and able to build some wealth. So I highly recommend that, the idea of bringing people alongside you in the ownership. And I recommend not becoming so attached to the business that you forget that you're an owner and that you're trying to build some wealth for the shareholders of the company. I've been successful in placing several of my businesses in what I think have been good hands, and those businesses have persisted. So I'm thankful for that. And quite often my employees ended up with a better opportunity on the backside than they had even before we sold it.
Right.
Not all, but most all of those 500 employees who worked for me at Compact Power still work for the Home Depot. And that's 5 years later. And they're shareholders in the Home Depot, a lot of them too, which is not a bad place to be, right?
For sure.
Yeah.
I want to touch on that point because you made such a great, important point there, just about tying in your leadership team, using different options, whether it's equity, whether it's different types of share programs there. But I mean, you probably found through through your different businesses that it helps everybody get on the same bus. It helps get alignment amongst your team if you're all driving towards that same goal. And if they have some type of stake in it, then I mean, you get that better buy-in. You get people working together as team. There's so many companies that have almost like dysfunctional teams or leadership because they're misaligned. But if they're all going towards that same goal.
Yeah, so we defined our mission in all the company. Once, by the way, about 30 years into this, or have maybe 25 years in, I realized that I had never defined my core values or my mission or my vision. And so that became a hallmark of everything I've touched since that moment, was to be clear about that. But the vision's been the same. It is to delight our clients, grow our business, earn a profit, and reward the team. 4 things: delight the client, grow the business, earn a profit, reward the team. And that reward the team is everything from the employees to the shareholders to even the vendor partners and bank supporters. And everybody needs to get a reward out of what we do. And so sometimes that's adding benefits, sometimes that's increasing the quality of our health insurance, or adding a life insurance policy or a dental policy. Sometimes it's bonuses, sometimes it's raises, sometimes it's better equipment to work with. But it's the idea that if we don't reward the team, we haven't completed the cycle and we haven't achieved our mission. The visions are different because different companies have different visions. The core values have always been very close to the same, although I've tried to let every team participate in defining the core values. But at Compact, they were 7: teamwork, no big egos allowed; hustle, just do it now; results, get your job done or put your hand up for help; integrity, if we write it or say it, we believe that it's true; professionalism, look sharp, be sharp; service, we love to solve problems for customers; and finally, fun, because life is just too short to be miserable at work.
That's great. And the key thing about that is you've kept them simple, you've kept them understandable. Everybody from the top to the bottom of the company, your frontline workers can understand your core values. I think a lot of companies get caught up with trying to be all fancy wording, fancy phrases, and it doesn't need that.
Yeah. No, we actually wrote a covenant of around those 7 things that our employees signed. And each one had a short paragraph to explain exactly what we meant by teamwork and exactly what we tried to capture it in that pithy little saying there. But we wanted to be sure you knew that integrity, for example, meant if you write it or say it, you believe it's true. You don't lie. You don't have to tell everything you know all the time to have integrity. But if you do say something, you better damn sure believe it's the truth, right?
Yeah. For sure. Yeah. So Roger, try to finish up here in a minute, but before we do, I'd love the audience just to understand a little bit more about your book. And I think you mentioned earlier that you're relaunching it, and then you're obviously now heavily involved in some charitable work, and I'd love people to find out about that, maybe get somewhat involved in that. So yeah, let me know about those couple of items.
Yeah. Okay. Well, first, the book's available on Amazon, Stepping into the Moment. It is my journey. It's more my business career, but it tells a bit about my life and my faith and about the organization that my daughter and I founded called Give Hope Global. And we're working to provide education and better health to a group of young people in Haiti and in Ghana and wherever else we end up being called. But those are our 2 focus areas right now. And we've been at that for a decade now. And that's in the book. Well, some of the things that I've learned along the way, I would say that the 3 big themes are this. One is there's always a time when we have the opportunity to step into the moment and take advantage of something that's been placed before us, whether it's to say the right thing at the right moment, whether it's to start a business and risk your life savings. Is that noise from your side or mine?
I'm not hearing it on my side.
I'm getting some feedback. I don't know where it is, but In any case, so the one idea is the idea of stepping into the moment and taking advantage of the opportunities that present themselves. The second is the idea of just never, ever quitting on what you start and being doggedly determined to see it through. If you step into the moment, but typically that moment is something that you're going to have to stick with, and you're going to have the fortitude. The third is the idea that as you go, if you don't invest in the people that are coming alongside you, one, you miss all the fun in the thing, and two, you miss the opportunity to make good investments that pay off over the long haul. So stepping into the moment, sticking with it, making your decisions right. There's a part of the book that talks about, we can spend a lot of time worried about making the right decisions, or we can just decide that we're going to take the decisions we've made and make them right by seeing them through. And so it's not an original idea. I give credit to Ann Verscheron, who came up with that idea in a great book called Bet on Me. But and the story of Give Hope Global is in there. A few other things that my grandkids and I worked out about how to define success, and a code to the best possible life, which is ACTBH. So all that's in there. Hope people will take the time to read it. It's a short book, won't take long.
Yeah, no, I read a copy, and there's so many takeaways. I mean, even on this call right here, I mean, there's probably 6 or 8 great takeaways that the audience can take back to their business, and the book itself as well is a wealth of information in there. So, Roger, it's been an absolute pleasure talking with you today, and I look forward to the audience getting your book. Look forward to hearing more about your other ventures you're involved in, and have a wonderful birthday on Saturday, you said?
Yeah, Saturday. Thank you, Robert. Thank you. It's onward and upward, I say. Here we're, it's this latter part of life is in many ways the very best part. The knees aren't quite what they were, but I don't have to run as hard as I did for a while either. So, so there's that.
Well, you look great. You're smiling, so you're obviously enjoying life right now, and that's a blessing. So thank you for everything you've done for the industry, and I wish you all the best in the future.
Thank you, Robert. Appreciate that. I enjoyed it.
That was the Commercial Landscaper podcast, hosted by Robert Clinkenbeard, and I'm the author of the Ironman Mindset for Entrepreneurs. If you want to find out more about the show, you're welcome to go to thecommerciallandscaper.com, or if you want to learn more about courses, education, buying some books, even if you want to just drop a note and suggest a guest, I'd love to hear from you. Again, this is Robert Clinkenbeard, the Commercial Landscaper podcast. Cheers, everyone.